In the video where I talk about Beta 3.0 and this philosophical predicament, I overkilled why the West is a beta male culture. Obviously, I'm born in America, I'm part white, and I come from a family that is well assimilated to Western culture in terms of finding success in the culture as doctors. Me and my two brothers all have college degrees. Both my parents are doctors. So you must ask yourself, if I am lying, what is the point of lying? Obviously, I'm telling the truth. Okay, so it is a beta male culture, and it screens out the alpha male that insists on true morality and is not pragmatic, functionalist, or a realist, which is basically saying everyone is evil, you may as well be evil too, and try to do what little bitch shit you can to survive. So now let's talk about the philosophical predicament they put me in. Let's go over this again because people are beta males who need for me to say it very calmly. They forced me to the argument of genetic superiority, wisdom, being more wise than other people, being persecuted as an admirable trait and respectable trait that women should have respected, and they should have followed suit by dating me. You know, if they're really mad at society, they would date the guy who does everything right, so to speak. The cultural supremacy and the moral supremacy. The way they did things did not allow for me to say that I am more sophisticated in Silicon Valley than the other men that attractive women date. Not in terms of technology. Sophisticated means worldly. Look up the definition of sophisticated. You know, I'll put it on the screen at this point. Okay. They did not allow me to make the argument that I'm more gangster, more of a thug, or more violent than the types of guys that they date. So there's a lot of people trying to be thugs in California. I couldn't say to women, women are stupid for dating them and not me because I'm more cool, more violent, more of a thug. Okay. So what our angle did they lead me with? They forced me to the argument of genetic superiority, wisdom, and being more wise, being persecuted, the Malcolm X and Martin Luther King effect, and the respect they should have assigned to me before my death in terms of affection, dating, admiration, and on-record allegiance. Cultural supremacy and moral supremacy. Very few people would argue that American culture is superior, but yet they turn around and say, you're either with us and our values or the terrorists. In a culture that has terrorized black people from its onset. Whippings, lynchings, rapings, beatings, murders, church bombings. Even recently, with the controversy over the statues in Charlottesville and so on, okay? The police shootings and Black Lives Matter. A culture that terrorizes black people, that says there's a war on terror. The message is that it is okay to terrorize black people, and if they have the nerve to pretend that they are human and equal and point it out, or to try to fight back, they need to be dealt with harshly. That is the message. It hasn't missed anyone, and everyone, including black people themselves, are following suit, as they only resist as controlled opposition. Even when they lash out, it is to further a controlled opposition cause, and certainly they were provoked to that response, one way or another. It is delusional not to see it this way. There's no logical explanation to the contrary. There's no other logical explanation for what is going on. The defaults of my argument, again, cultural arguments, moral arguments, arguments that pertain to wisdom, persecution, and genetic superiority, especially in the face of eugenics, where California is a main eugenics center. David Starr Jordan, who founded Stanford, was eugenics. COINTELPRO and MKUltra have implications, direct and obvious connections to the eugenic movement. It is a liberal hub where Hillary Clinton praised Margaret Sanger, one of the most famous eugenicists ever. To explain my situation and why they should date me, to explain my worth, really, I had to bring up my father. I am not dealing with alpha males or martial artists or people with exceptional insight and the heart, the Horus perspective to follow suit. But rather, I am dealing with conformists, beta males, cowards, just run-of-the-mill sissies who have been bred to be complicit as the most brave, the wisest, and the best of their cultures were incrementally screened out, scientifically especially. People then turn around and cling on to science when it was science that put them in this pitiful state that they're currently in. I'm not saying that there is no good from science. I'm not saying you should ignore all the cures. But certainly you should take it with a grain of salt at least, and you should not give them your respect. You should not breed with these people. The more they are complicit with a eugenic system of oppression, the more you should despise them and stop at nothing to avoid sleeping with them, and you should ostracize those family members that are reproducing with them. Obviously, the people who are most guilty when it comes to my targeting are the people who have the most vested interest, right? The most reason to target me. My masculinity and my emphasis on masculinity, my refusal to conform to Western perspectives of aesthetics, of beauty, of attractiveness, of masculinity, of social interaction, puts me directly at odds with the LGBT community and their massive Hollywood, social media, entertainment industry, etc. propaganda network. Feminists obviously do not like a masculine spirit argument. Mainstream feminists at least. Eugenicists wish for you to believe that the most criminal of people of European descent are the most respectable people, including, but not limited to, Jews of European descent. Satanists, obviously, reject arguments of morality, and eugenics and Satanism go hand in hand. Satanism depends on sophistication. Arguments of satanic liberation. It depends on white supremacy. Okay, if they believe if you're superior, you should be able to prey on the inferior forms of life. And certainly they define superiority in terms of evil. Is it a coincidence that Satanists have been allowed to run PSYOP units like Michael Aquino? Is it a coincidence that the eugenic argument is completely compatible and advances the cause of, completely compatible with and advances the cause of Satanism? Certainly not. Western society can be best described philosophically as a result of Satanism. Western philosophy can be best described as Satanism. Plato, as the most influential philosopher, said that reproduction should be controlled by the state, and the state obviously is controlled by the corporations through the iron triangle of economics. And just since Justinian, on record, corporations have funded fraternal organizations, tradesmen units, and different organizations that are responsible for the culture. At that time, they were referred to as cult. That term has since been stigmatized, and they are trying to mislead you and misdirect you into believing that cults are these Jonestown, Branch Dravidians, Heaven's Gate, and different groups that are ostracized by society and not accepted by society, while at the same time effectively demonstrating how they were allowed to operate because society does things that's in a way that's conducive for private organizations that are best described as cults to control society and to exert influence through mental health and psychological operations and activities, including marketing campaigns. So again, in case you missed my argument, because of women shunning me, which is the most painful experience for a man, in the absence of extreme torture, at least, but perhaps included, I have been tortured in my life for prolonged periods of time. And I more than covered that in my other videos. The worst torture I've endured is the shunning of women. Women who claim to be the more emotionally intelligent sex. The left, with its compassionate dispensaries and medical marijuana, they claim to be revolutionary and quite often militant. They have turned their back to my struggle, when hands down I am the most respectable revolutionary in American history. You can't even name one revolutionary that you can honestly say was uncontrolled in recorded history. They were all controlled, including King. King's assassination can best be described as one controlled opposition group acting to limit the activities of others, or a grouping of controlled opposition groups acting to limit the activities of the others, or a message sent by the corporate elite that even if you are controlled, a black man is not to gain a position of reverence in his lifetime. Not in terms of morality. Name one black person in America currently that has achieved a position of moral relevance, they do not exist. Not to the truest sense, in the truest sense of the word.